I'd like you to get out Walden, and you have some questions with Walden. And if we were in a normal situation, we would circle the desk. The other day, we tried to read outside, and that was okay. And we'll do that again. I'd like to do that regularly. If it works, I mean, if it doesn't work, but I like being out there, and I think the weather's gonna be pretty good for a while. So if you get out Walden, and the questions for Walden. Yeah. The book is right there. Is that it up there?
Yeah. I don't have the questions.
All right. Side, you have the book?
Yes, sir. I got the
Who needs the question? Is there anybody else?
Ms. Powell.
Yeah.
That voice us.
All right, this is not an easy book to read or to listen to. And I think with the questions in front of you, it will be easier. We did start it the other day. I think I read the first page. So you need to make sure you're there. All right, I think we said that the word economy means a wise use of your resources, and you usually think of that in terms of money, but so he's writing a book, this first chapter, and it's really long, it's 75 pages. We're not going to read all of it. You have questions for all of it. And so we answered that one. Then we said, where did write Walden? He wrote it at Walden, which is a pond. And he went in 1845, and he came out 1847. It's not like he went in and out. He was literally a mile from town. You know, so it's not like he was like a survivor type person. And I don't think you're gonna need that today, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My question, I have a few for one.
Okay, I just can't see what you're looking at, but are you are you answering the questions on
Yeah,
your-
that's what I was doing.
That's the purpose of it. That's what I mean, if you got one, that's why how you're supposed to. All right, so we are at the bottom of the page, and I'm gonna ask you to start.
All right.
Right there. I don't think we read more than that second paragraph. Page 7, yeah.
Okay. I was seated.
I would feign at the very bottom.
Page 7. Okay, the 11. I would fain say something not so much concerning the Chinese and Sandwich Islanders as you who read these pages who are said to live in New England. Something about your condition, especially your outward condition or circumstances in this world, in this town, whether it is necessary that it be as bad as it is, whether it cannot be improved as well as not. I have traveled a good deal in Concord and everywhere in shops and offices and fields. The inhabitants have appeared to me to be doing penance in a thousand remarkable ways.
Okay, stop there. Look at question number 4. Number 3, why did he write about himself? What's his explanation? Remember? Yeah.
He knew himself better than he knew anything else in the world.
Yes. It's just common sense, isn't it? I think even novels are autobiographical, you know. Even when you're writing something that's completely made up, you're drawing from your own experiences.
So can I?
Yeah, but we gotta answer this. What is penance? We answered that the other day. He says that, people in New England are doing penance in 1,000 remarkable ways. Do you have any idea what he means by it? If penance is punishment for sins, or paying back for sins, it sounds like he's talking about their work. So at every shops, offices, fields, the inhabitants have appeared to me doing penance in 1,000 remarkable ways. What does he mean? Yeah, it is hard work, but it seems like you could be doing hard work, but not be doing penance. Like, if you were doing penance, that means you're being punished. So how would work look like if you felt like it was punishment to be at work, as opposed to you enjoyed being at work? How would that look? You enjoy your work, you've told us. So you know what it's like to enjoy what you do. But how can you tell? He says he watched people and they appeared to be doing penance. So how do you think they looked when they were working? Yeah, Emma.
Miserable?
Yeah, how would they show that? Or just like they're not smiling, they're not talking. Maybe it's the way they're working. If you ever done work or seem like a kid, you're forced to take the garbage out, and you act like you hate it. So you bump into everything, you throw things around. You're making it clear, I do not like this job. As opposed to maybe you're humming, maybe you're singing, maybe you're doing it quickly, but you're doing it carefully. You can tell when people like their work. And he says that people in New England in 1845, they didn't look like they liked their work. So keep reading.
Okay. What I have heard of Brahmins sitting exposed to 4 fires and looking in the face of the sun, or hanging suspended with their heads downward over flames, or looking at the heavens over their shoulders, until it becomes impossible for them to resume their natural position, while from the twist of the neck nothing but liquids can pass into the stomach, or dwelling changed for life at the foot of a tree, or measuring with their bodies like caterpillars the breadth. What is that?
The extent, the length, the width.
Okay. Of vast empires, or standing on one leg of the tops of pillars. Even these forms of conscious penance are hardly more incredible and astonishing than the scenes which I daily witness.
Did you hear some of the examples? I don't know if you learned this in medieval history back in the day, but you remember how the monks would treat themselves sometimes? They would, like he gave examples, they'd stand on one foot at the top of a pillar, or chain themselves to the trunk of a tree, or one ridiculous one, it seemed, and these are Brahmins, those are actually Hindus, but I think other religions have, hanging suspended with their heads downward over flames, or looking at the heavens over your shoulder until it becomes impossible for them to resume their natural position. People are purposely hitting each other. You remember what Dimmesdale would do when nobody was watching? I think he really did that because of his adultery that nobody knew about. Remember one of the things he did? He would take some sort of whip and actually beat himself, like punish. Have you ever done something? So you say you haven't, but I bet you have. Can you imagine as a kid saying, "I'm so stupid. I hate myself." That's kind of the same thing. You feel really dumb. You say something like that, or to extreme, you might even hit yourself. It's ridiculous. It's insane. but people do that. And he said there are people that work like that. You see the point he's trying to make? Keep reading.
The 12 labors of Hercules were trifling in comparison with those which my neighbors have undertaken. For they were only 12 and had an ed, but I could never see that those men slew or captured any monster or finished any labor. They had no friend, Iolus, to burn with a hot iron the root of the hydra's head, but as soon as one head is crushed, two spring up.
I said this is what this entire book, in a sense, could be summarized by that description. That's what he's writing about. That's not what life should look like. So he's trying to show in the book how life could look like if you had a completely different attitude. Not like those monks and Brahmin who were punishing themselves for sin. Sarah.
I see young men, my townsmen, whose misfortune it is to have inherited farms, houses, barns, cattle, and farming tools. For these are more easily acquired than got rid of. Better if they had been born to be more easily away in the open pasture and suckled by a wolf, than that they might have seen with clear eyes what field they called to labor. Who made these serfs of soil? Why should they eat their 60 acres when man is condemned to eat only his peck of dirt? Why should they begin digging their graves as soon as they are born? They have not to live a man's life, pushing all these things before them and get on as well as they can. How many a poor immortal soul have I met, well nigh crushed and smothered under its life, creeping down the road of life, pushing before its barn 70 feet by 40, its auging stables never clean, the 100 acres of land, tillage, mowing pastures, and woodlot, the portionless who struggle with no such unnecessary inherited encumbrance, find its labor enough to subdue and cultivate a few cubic feet of flesh.
Well, instead of, that's not penance, that's just hard work. You see people who have inherited property, they have to keep it. Have you ever thought about when you get to be in your career and maybe married, you want to live in a big house or a small house?
Medium.
That's probably a wise response, but if you think about it, you know, everybody wants to live in a big house, but think what you have to do to maintain a big house. Why your grandparents downsizing? Why do we even have the term downsizing in our vocabulary? Because it's too much trouble to maintain a big house. So, you know, be careful what you wish for. That's kind of what he's talking about. Millionaires don't get to be millionaires by inheriting, by the lottery. You know, they work really hard. But is it worth it? Have you weighed the cost about how hard do you want to work to get things that have to be maintained? And it's like a vicious cycle. Emma.
But men labor under a mistake. The better part of the man is soon plowed into the soil from compost. By a seeming fate commonly called necessity, they are employed, as it says in the old book, laying upon treasures with which moths and rust will corrupt and thieves break through and steal. It is a fool's life, as they will find them when they get to the end of it, if not before. It is said that created men by throwing stones over the head behind them.
You can skip to Latin.
Want me to read the quotation?
Well, you can read the non-Latin one, yeah.
From thence our kind hard-hearted is, enduring pain and care, approving that our bodies of stony nature are. So much for blind obedience to a blundering oracle, throwing the stones over their head behind them, and not seeing where they fell.
All right, so he's attacking the idea of why are you working so hard? We love hard work, but why are you working this hard? Jeff?
Most men, even in this comparatively free country, though mere ignorance and mistake, are so
look at question number 5. Part of this doesn't apply because we didn't read hard times, which would have been a very appropriate here. What does he mean by saying the laboring man has no time to be anything but a machine? Yeah,
Maybe that he works all the time and doesn't have anything else to do, like, has no real life, just work.
that's a good description of it. That it's all you're doing is working. And machines don't have lives, they just work and then don't work. But, you know, sometimes men work like machines. We're not machines, we're men. Partly.
Some of you we all know are blessed, find it hard to live, are sometimes, as it were, gasping for breath. I have no doubt that some of you who read this book are unable to pay for all the dinners which you have actually eaten, or for the clothes and shoes which are fast wearing or are already worn out. And you have come to this page to spend borrowed or stolen time, robbing your creditors of an hour. It is very evident what mean and sneaking lives many of you live. For my sight has been weighted by experience, always on the limit, trying to get into business and trying to get out of debt, a very ancient slough, called by the Latins aluminum, another brass. For some of their coins were made of brass, still living and dying, were buried by this other's brass, always promising to pay, tomorrow and dying today, insolvent, seeking to curry favor, to get custom by how many modes, only not state prison offenses, lying, flattering, voting, trashing yourselves into a nutshell of civility, or dilating into an atmosphere of thin and vaporous generosity that you may persuade your neighbors to let you make his shoes, or his hat, or his coat, or his carriage, or import his groceries for him, making yourself sick that you may lay up something against a sick day, something to be tucked away in an old chest, or in a stocking behind the plastering, or more safely in the bank, no matter where, no matter how much or how little.
Did any of you take Mr. Cox's and other people have taught it, the personal finance, is it personal finance course? Did any of you take it?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you learn? What are some of the basic principles of personal finance?
Debt bad.
What?
Debt is bad.
That's probably the first thing that's taught in those things.
You need to invest in stock.
All right. Anything else? I mean, those are two big principles. Stay out of debt, but instead invest. Think about the difference. The money if you're in debt, your money's just going down the drain. You're paying for something that you used a long time ago. You're still paying for it. Investments actually produce dividends that, just like planting a crop, they grow fruit. So one is better than the other. This book would be a good companion to that. Why don't we go to Brian? Sometimes, yeah.
I sometimes wonder that we can be so frivolous, I may almost say, as to attend to the gross but somewhat foreign form of servitude called Negro slavery. There are so many keen and subtle masters in a slave book, north and south. It is hard to have a southern overseer. It is worse to have a northern one, but worst of all, when you are the slave driver of yourself. Talk of a divinity in land, look at the teamster on the highway, wending to market by day or night. Does any divinity stir within him? His highest duty to fodder and water his horses. What is his destiny to make to him compared with the shipping interest? Does not he drive for squire make a stir? How godlike, how immortal is he? See how he cowers and sneaks. How vaguely all the day he fears, not being immortal nor divine. For the slave and prisoner of his own opinion of himself, a fame won by his own deeds. Public opinion is a weak tyrant compared with our own private opinion. What a man thinks of himself, that is which determines, or rather indicates, fate, self-emancipation, even in the West Indian provinces of the fancy and imagination. What wilder force is there to bring that about? Think also of the ladies of the land, weaving toilet cushions against the last day, not to betray too green an interest in their fates, as if you could kill time without enduring eternity.
Look at question number 6. Yeah, it says comment on the following. So we just read the first one. What a man thinks of himself, that is which determines or rather indicates his fate. What do you think it means? It's what you think about yourself is going to determine your future.
Yeah. If you don't think high of yourself, then you don't think you can do anything that, your fate, I say.
I'm not sure how you said it.
All right? Well,
Like if you don't think you can do whatever it is you're not gonna do,
all right.
you're just basically making it worse for yourself by believing you're gonna do something bad, or believing you're not gonna be able to do something.
Any other thoughts about that? Yeah.
Well, like if you tell yourself you can't do something, then it like turns your mind, and it like tells your mind that you can't.
Yeah, I mean, you're awfully young. That's very true. You guys are young, and you haven't, you don't have a lot of experience yet. But maybe you've also observed that sometimes the smartest person, or even the most talented person, doesn't achieve some of the things that less talented people or less smart people achieve. And maybe it's even true with sports. Maybe somebody's not quite as talented as somebody else, but they seem to achieve more in sports. I've just noticed that more and more, that how much talent you have, how much intelligence you have, maybe isn't the most important thing. I think he's onto something. I've noticed people who are just willing to try things, and maybe they talk a good game, but they're willing to fail. Those people often succeed, whereas other people, and one day you'll have a class reunion, and one day, you'll maybe 10 years after you graduate, 20 years, and you'll be seeing people and think, I never thought he, or I never thought she would be in this position. Remember in high school? I just never thought that person, and maybe it's true. Maybe they weren't as smart, but look what they've done, because maybe they're the kind of people that they took chances. I know I'm talking about foolish chances, but just they made risks. It goes back to what they thought they could do. They talked themselves into things. I'm capable of doing it. I think he's really on something. If you've noticed, this is what the whole book's about. He says things like this over and over, things that are so relevant. He says it in such a unusual way for us, that we'll get through it. But when you stop and think about what he just said, he's talking to you and me. So why don't we go to Lillian?
The massive men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotyped but unconscious despair is concealed even under what is called the games of amusements and of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work. But it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things.
Again, I really recommend that you highlight, you underline what's in the book. That would really help you. So there are two statements here that are both on your questions in this paragraph. It says, we did the first one, but he says in the second one, it really should be two different ones, but it is a characteristic of the massive men lead lives of quiet desperation. What does he mean by that? Most people live lives where they seem constantly to be desperate. And then the companion statement is, It is characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. What are desperate things? What does that mean? What does it mean to be desperate? You've never been desperate. Yeah.
If you want something, you'll be willing to do anything to get it.
It's almost, you're hopeless. There's only one way out. I've got to do something, I've got to do this extreme thing in order to achieve it, because it's so urgent and desperate. I like that. You're willing to do anything. And it says here, the characteristic of wisdom is not to do desperate things. So don't ever, that's really worth taking to the bank with. Is taking it to the bank. In other words, it'll pay off in the future. I'm not gonna do, this is a desperate thing, I'm not gonna do it. If it's kind of too risky, I'm not gonna do it. Even I want to, because I'm desperate, I gotta do something, let me do this. It's not, Thoreau, and I think he's right here, it's not gonna turn out well. I know she didn't just read as much as you're gonna read here, Jameson, but if you could read at least part of it,
When I
pass it.
consider what to use the words of the Catechism is the chief end of man, and what are the true necessaries and means of life, it appears as if men have deliberately chosen the common mode of living because they preferred it to any other. Yet they honestly think there is no choice left. But alert and healthy natures remember that the sun rose clear. It is never too late to give up our prejudices. No way of thinking or doing, however ancient, can be trusted without proof. What everybody echoes or in silence passes by as should a day men may turn out to be false of tomorrow. Mere smoke of opinion which some had trusted for a cloud that would sprinkle fertilizing rain on their fields. What old people say you cannot do, you try and find that you can. Old deeds for old people and new deeds for new. Old people do not know enough once, perchance to fetch fresh fuel to keep their fire a-going. New people put a little dry wood under a pot and are whirled around the globe with the speed of birds, in a way to kill a people, as the phrase is. Ages know better, hardly so well qualified for an instructor's teeth, for it has not profited so much as it has lost. One may almost doubt if the wisest man has learned anything of absolute value by living. Practically, the old has no very important advice to give the young. Their own experience has been so partial, and their lives have been such miserable failures, for private reasons, as they must believe. And it may be that they have some faith left which belies that experience, and they are only less young than they were. I have lived some 30 years on this planet, and I have yet to hear the first syllable of valued or even earnest advice from my seniors. They have told me nothing, and probably cannot tell me anything to the purpose. Here is life, an experiment to a great extent untried by me, but it does not avail me that they have tried it. If I have any experience which I think valuable, I am sure to reflect that this my mentors said nothing about.
So basically, he says, old people haven't taught him anything, because you're older and you've experienced things. I've got to do it myself. He's very much into self-reliance. And though he says he doesn't do desperate things, he also says life's an experiment, and most people haven't tried this or that. But he says don't try it unless you've sort of thought about it and considered the proof. Is there proof that this is useful? Sometimes he kind of talks out both sides of his mouth, but Julian?
One farmer says to me, you cannot live on vegetable food solely, for it furnishes nothing to make bones with, and so he religiously devotes a part of his day to supplying his system with the raw materials of bones, walking all the while he talks about his oxen, which with vegetable-made bones, jerk him in his lumbering plow along in spite of every obstacle. Some things are really necessary in life in some circles, the most helpless is disease, which in others are luxuries merely, and in others still are entirely unknown.
All right, we'll go to Ben. We're going to read 4 more paragraphs. I'm going to ask you to write something.
The whole ground of human life seems to some to have been gone over by their
Predecessors.
both the heights and the valleys, and all things do have been cared for. According to Evelyn, the wise Solomon prescribed ordinances for the very distances of trees, and the traders have decided how often you may go to your neighbor's land to gather the acorns which fall on it without trespass. And what share belongs to that neighbor? Hypocrites has ever
Hippocrates, he's a Greek physician.
Hippocrates has even left directions how we should cut our nails. That is, even with the ends of the fingers, neither shorter nor longer.
All right, before you go on, I underlined that many years ago, and I've never forgotten it. It says even a Greek physician, like 2,000 years ago, told us how to cut our fingernails with, it says, even with the ends of the fingers neither longer or shorter. Now, style today would contradict that, you know, people, but I've never forgotten when I look at my fingernails, he said, for 2,000 years, the best advice that could be given you, that the fingernail is no longer or shorter than the finger. This is a strange book. It has all these nuggets of interesting information. Keep going.
Undoubtedly, the very tedium which presume to have exhausted the
Variety.
variety and joys of life for as old as Adam. A man's capacities have never been measured, nor are we to judge of what he can do by any precedents. So little has been tried. Whatever have been many failures hitherto. Be not afflicted, my child, for who shall shine to thee what thou hast left undone?
Right? Yep.
We might try our lives by 1,000 simple tests, as for instance, that the same sun which ripens my beans illumines at once a system of earths like ours. If I had remembered this, it would have prevented some mistakes. This was not the light in which I hoped of. The stars are the apexes of the wonderful triangles. What distant and different beings in the various mansions of the universe are contemplating the same one at the same moment. Nature and human life are as various as our several constitutions. Who shall say what prospect life offers to another? Could a great miracle take place then for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? We should live in all ages of the world in an hour. In all the worlds of the ages, history, poetry, mythology. I know of no reading of another's experiences so startling and informing as this would be.
Right. Okay.
The greater part of what my neighbors call good, I believe in my soul to be bad. And if I repent of anything, it is very likely to be my good behavior. What demon possessed me that I behave so well? You may say the wisest thing you can, old man. You have lived 70 years, not without honor of kind. I hear an irresistible voice which invites me away from all that. One generation abandons the enterprises of another, like stranded vessels.
Would you underline that first statement? The greater part of what my neighbors call good, I'd believe to be in my soul to be bad. And if I repent of anything, it is very likely to be of my good behavior. So he is write your word down, self-reliant and independent. He says he doesn't determine good and bad by what you think or what other people think, even if you're in the majority. He says he determines good and bad, but he hasn't told us how, but his own way. And so I think that's very typical of him. And Tucker, can you just finish it to the bottom of that paragraph?
I think that we may safely trust a good deal more than we do. We may waive just so much care of ourselves as we honestly bestow elsewhere. Nature is as well adapted to our weakness as to our strength. The incessant anxiety and strain of some is a well-nigh incurable form of disease. We are made to exaggerate the importance of what work we do, and yet how much is not done by us. Or what if we had been taken sick? How vigilant we are, determined not to live by faith if we can avoid it. All the day long we'll be alert. At night we unwillingly say our prayers and commit ourselves to uncertainties. So thoroughly and sincerely are we compelled to
be writing some journals, because this basically is the product of journals. He would write, and then he turned them into a book. I want you to turn to a part of your notebook that I'm able to check at some point, and we're gonna write a variety of these, starting today. And when I say we have 10 minutes, that's exactly how much time I want you to spend on it. So, notebook, something to write with, and I'll tell you what I'd like you to write about. The ideal journal is when you pick your own subject. But you didn't choose to write the journal, I chose for you, so I'm gonna give you the topic.
So put the book in there.
You don't need it. All right, I want you to write, and I don't know how many of you have ever worked, like a job that you got paid for. Probably at some point, whether it's for your parents or whatever, you've been paid to do work. So I'd like for you to analyze some job, maybe it was very temporary, but that you had, that you enjoyed, that you liked doing. And one that you worked hard. You don't like it because you didn't have to do anything. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a job, even if it was a temporary job, that you did, that you felt satisfaction and fulfillment from. I want you to analyze why you felt that way. What was it about that job that gave you that sense of satisfaction?
So just write about a job we got satisfaction from and why?
Yes.
Okay.
How long?
About 10 minutes, about 3/4 of a page. And try to identify the things about the job that made it so enjoyable, or maybe that's not the right word, satisfactory, just sometimes work isn't fun. It doesn't have to be fun, but fulfilling.